Good morning. I am thrilled to be here with you today, and I've been to a whole lot of conferences in my career. You can always tell a good one based on the details. And so I applaud the Women in Cybersecurity team for really getting the details right, and we should give them a strong hand. It's just been a great conference so far. So I'd like to start off by thanking Dr. Siraj and the Women in Cybersecurity team for the opportunity to share with you today. And as I looked over the agenda and was thinking about what I wanted to share with you, what a wealth of topics, everything from threat mitigation to red teams and blue teams and Internet of Things and breaches, all great topics for us who are in the cybersecurity field. There is truly something for everyone here over the next day and a half, and I encourage you to take full advantage of it. It's a great opportunity to network, to advance your career, to start your career, to find your place in cybersecurity. But today, I'm not going to talk to you about any of that. Instead, I'm going to share some thoughts on this time in our lives, certainly with a focus on how you can be successful in the cybersecurity field, but how you can do so in spite of disruptions, and how you can take a disruption and turn it into an opportunity without making regrettable personal sacrifices. It's been, and I intend along the way to share some personal perspectives and some of my experiences with you that I believe and hope will inspire you and challenge you, maybe to not make some of the mistakes that I've made, but also to be the best that you can be in cybersecurity. So 4 years ago, I am sitting on a beach in Venice, Florida. I had recently retired from federal service after 31 years at NSA, and I got a phone call from a former colleague in government who had just taken over the role as co-director of the Belfer Center at Harvard, Dr. Eric Rosenbach. And Eric called to say, given what had just happened in the previous 6 months during the general election in 2016, they were considering standing up an effort to focus on election security. And he asked me if I was interested, and I was like all the way in, yes. And so I joined this phenomenal team of a diverse team of folks with specialties certainly in cybersecurity, but we had political experts, we had communications experts, and the task before us, given the disruption that occurred in 2016, was to find an opportunity to instill some new culture into a community that really had not before thought much about security, and that was in the campaign and election environment. And so we set about to do that by developing and delivering lots and lots of content that's available today in the Belfer Center website. The name of the organization is Defending Digital Democracy. But we didn't just deliver content, we actually went and met with state representatives and trained folks on how to best secure campaigns and elections. So we had a disruption in 2016. We turned it into an opportunity, and the place that we refused to compromise was in security. Even though we were talking to a cadre of folks who knew absolutely not much at all about security, we were able to communicate it in a way that was understandable to them and in which they could actually apply it in a reasonable way. So that is really the crux of my talk today, is to talk about this from disruption to opportunity without compromise. You've heard a lot of statistics already today. I'm going to throw a couple more at you. According to ISC2, the representation of women in the cybersecurity field was 24% in 2019, a decent increase from 2011, where it was 11%, but clearly not enough. Certainly not enough compared to the percentage of women in the population. Today, the global deficit in cybersecurity personnel is projected at 3.5 million globally. There is room for every single one of you in this room, plus a whole lot more, to work in this field. The cybersecurity workforce shortfall and this growing diversity gap in the United States reflects a broader challenge that the U.S. faces in the area of STEM programs in our schools. And I know we've got a whole lot of students here today. I heard over 700. Until we can get more students just like you graduating with STEM-related degrees, these shortfalls are going to continue. As a nation, we have to be laser-focused on quality and retention in middle and high school STEM programs. And as these formative years, we need to take advantage of them to help determine the future talent pipeline for the cybersecurity workforce. We need strategies, we need programs, we need teachers to be trained, we need curriculum to be developed, and we need financial incentives to encourage those who are not able to afford it to be able to do so. And we need to be able to create some flexibilities in the workspace so that individuals who are trained and ready to work can be able to move from government to academia to industry and back again much more seamlessly without a threat of loss of career progression because they're moving from one area to the other. As I think about my personal story, 31 years at NSA, the past 5 years working in industry and academia, it is clear to me that my personal journey has been nothing short of amazing, and that had little to do with me. It was because so many other people opened doors, made phone calls, took risks, and paved a way for me. My life experiences, my beliefs, my values, my work ethic, my culture, all contributed to shaping who I am today. But guess what? I had to perform. And we should get this part out of the way early. It's absolutely true that a woman, and as a minority, I sometimes had to work harder, I had to work longer, I had to work stronger. Please don't be intimidated or frustrated by this, but rather consider it just another step in your path. And I certainly hope that someday it will be an unnecessary step. I have had the privilege of serving our nation during some of the most exciting and challenging times in history, to include the fall of the Soviet Union, the emergence of terrorism and efforts to counter it, September 11th that we're going to be just celebrating or commemorating tomorrow, Middle East conflicts, the rise of unsavory nation-state actors, and almost everything else, and some efforts towards peace, but all have paled in comparison, for me, to my opportunity to witness firsthand the birth, growth, and the maturation of cyber as a domain and cybersecurity as a critical necessity. Make no mistake, we are very reliant upon that internet for our survival. And this reliance on data and networks to accomplish everything we do, from work to play, from home to school and beyond, makes these very same networks great targets for theft, for crimes, for political foolery, for social statements. So if we combine the serious cybersecurity situation with a pandemic, like who would have known? And it's still going on. Today I'm going to share with you some thoughts on how to be successful in spite of the disruptions, how to take advantage of cyber opportunities that come your way, and here's the most important piece, to do so without sacrificing or compromising the things that are most important to you. So we are living in this exciting and challenging time. Who would have thought 18 months ago that today we would be still dealing with COVID-19? And it has literally disrupted every single aspect of our lives. Throughout my career, I have had the privilege of traveling literally around the world, over 40 countries, 5 continents. I have packed for every climate, I have packed for every possible situation, but this little short 2-day trip here created some of the biggest packing challenges for me ever, because I had to think about, do I have enough wipes? Do I have enough hand sanitizer? Do I have masks to match? And we're going to be there for a little while. Many of the pandemic-related disruptions we've experienced have been good ones, and there have also been some not so good ones. We have learned that we can work remotely, and quite often we can be just as productive remotely as we were in a face-to-face environment. We learned that we could actually coexist in the same physical space with family members, with kids, and most people came out of it okay. There was an article yesterday in the New York Times that talked about this and discussed the impact of two employees who joined organizations during the pandemic and never met physically anyone in the company, a year and a half later. And yes, we've learned about opportunities that have also been lost because you've not been able to talk to coworkers at the coffee mess. You've not been able to chat about your weekends as you're walking to and from your car, or get mentoring advice and counsel from colleagues and coworkers. So we're learning to make this adjustment as we now transition to back to work and hybrid work and learning. And we are modifying our behaviors and our expectations. So this pandemic has been disruptive, but also instructive. But if we think back before the pandemic, there were some other disruptive things going on in our world. We had raging social issues that really threatened our personal and our professional concepts of right and wrong, and caused us, truthfully, not to trust one another so much. We became rather insular. We have out-of-control politics that threaten our very democracy and threaten the freedoms we've all come to expect. We have clashes of cultures that seem to be inevitable, but nonetheless have left us confused, flat-footed, and even sometimes angry. And we have changing demographics that, by the way, were predicted years ago and now are coming to pass. The browning of America is a thing that for some is disruptive. So all of these detours, these disruptions, are detours to our view, our idyllic view of how we should live, of our lives, of our personal and professional spaces. We're on edge at work, we're on edge at play, and these disruptions can't help but impact our performance. So what in the world is a girl to do? First, we need to look for opportunities, and especially the opportunity to take on new and vital work in the area of cybersecurity. The need for cybersecurity, you've heard a lot about it already this morning. I'm not going to repeat. It's compelling. Remember, keep in mind, from disruptions come opportunities. This cyber mission mandate is stronger than ever. We are truly in uncharted waters. It used to be that we had to war game what might happen should critical infrastructure be violated. Well, now we don't have to war game anymore because we have real examples of critical infrastructure being violated. This year alone, we've seen ransomware attacks explode, and we no longer need to have to focus on notional ideas of bad things happening. Colonial Pipeline, JBS Foods, the Washington, D.C. Police, the NBA, yesterday Howard University, all victims of the more notable ransomware attacks. Here's a little bit of good news. The view of most cybersecurity experts really points to two solutions. And the words are simple, the implementation not so. The first is getting organizations to adequately invest in security. And the second is more capacity. And ladies, that's where we come in. Taking advantage of every single opportunity to unleash your creativity with boldness, to challenge norms, envision futures where you can live and play securely, and then roll up your sleeves and contribute to making it a reality. Because as women, we approach and solve problems differently. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. And my iPad decided to go to the wrong place, so give me just a minute while I get back to that spot. When we try to solve problems as women, we want, and why wouldn't an organization want all the options on the table? Why wouldn't they want to tap into our differences? The differences we all bring. To not do so is short-sighted. And as studies have shown, it hurts both innovation and profitability. So now is the time to make those necessary investments by leveraging everything available, all of us. So you might be asking now, how is it that you can personally be successful in cybersecurity? And I'm going to share with you my keys for success, what you can do to take control of your career and catapult to success in cybersecurity. The first is that in whatever area you choose to focus, whether it be forensics or IT, management, engineering, marketing, pure play security, Do it really well. Organizations still value strong performers. Be all in. Continue to work on building your personal portfolio and taking appropriate risks. The second is that you continue to stay connected to those who can speak favorably about you, and don't give them any reason not to. Your character, your accomplishments, they define who you are, and for those that can attest to that, it paves a way for you to be able to gain access to opportunities that might not otherwise have been available. The third is that you should need to recognize that there may be people in your paths, many of whom have traveled your road before, who truly actually know what's better for you more than you do. And I have a story to share with you here. So early in my career, I was probably 5 years at NSA, a new mother, just finished a development program, in a job, happy. My supervisor comes in one morning and says, Deb, an opportunity has come up for us to send a couple of people to the Dale Carnegie course in public speaking. And we'd like to send you to this course. And already I'm thinking like, no way, no way. He says, I'll explain to you why I said no way. Again, I'm in a new place, I'm in a job, I'm liking it. I've got a lot of other things going on in my life personally with motherhood and family. But here was the most important reason, I thought. I work at an organization called NSA, which was known as No Such Agency. When in the world would I ever need to speak publicly? I couldn't even say I worked at NSA when I wasn't inside of NSA at that time. Now I'm guessing most of you who are here might not even know who Dale Carnegie was. He was an American writer focused on leadership and did a lot of work on public speaking. So he offered this training program. It was something like 12 weeks every Wednesday, something outrageous like that. So I politely declined the opportunity. The next morning I came into work, and my supervisor's secretary called and said, Mr. Day would like to speak with you. Now, I've never been in Mr. Day's office, so of course I'm shaking at this point. I'm thinking, what in the world? And I go to meet with Mr. Day that morning, and he says, Debbie, Bob tells me you declined the Dale Carnegie thing, but I'm hoping I can talk you out of that because I really think it's something we'd like to have you. So now I'm really getting a little bit paranoid. I'm thinking, is something wrong with my articulation? Am I being picked on a little bit? But of course, you probably know what I did. I said yes. And I went to the Dale Carnegie course in public speaking, never understanding why in the world I went. Who would have thought that 20 years later, I served in the most public position at NSA other than the director and deputy director, and was speaking on a regular basis at conferences like this and in industry events. That Bernie guy, he didn't know that when he asked me to take the class. But what he did know is that he saw something in me that I surely did not see in myself, and he gave me an opportunity. And I share that with you because it's important that you recognize that there will occasionally be people who will tell you to do something that might not make good sense at the time. If you trust the person and you trust the process, then you should say yes and wait for the benefits to come. My next key is to make sure you have mentors, and you need a bunch of them, by the way. And a bunch means a good handful. And by the way, make sure they don't all look like you. Make sure your circle of influence is as diverse as possible, because you'll get different perspectives, you'll get different opportunities, and because they all look through their experiences with different lenses, you will benefit from that. I really can't speak enough about the power and influence of mentors in my life. I have sought the counsel of mentors for every major career move and decision in my life. They have given me their best judgment. They have picked up the phone and made calls to open doors or pave ways for me. They have given me the brutal truth about me. In fact, one of the best jobs I've had was because someone picked up a phone and made a call to get me an interview, and it happened to be at the White House. And it opened the door for me to go and ultimately work at the National Security Council. And I'd also share that one of my best pieces of constructive criticism came from a mentor. So I know, I've always known that I don't have a poker face. Like I can't play poker. Like, you always know what's in my hand. You always know how I'm feeling based on my facial expression. And I knew that, I was aware of that. But what I wasn't aware of is that when I am sitting in a meeting receiving a briefing from a group of people, my face was telling them exactly how I felt before everyone finished presenting. And so what that created was a not great environment, because those who had to come after were afraid to really speak their truth, and those who were on the stage were getting a little bit nervous about it too, because Debbie's face wasn't looking so cool. This supervisor sat me down and told me that. She said, "You have got to fix that, because everybody sees your position before you've heard all of the positions." It was one of the best pieces of advice I learned. And so I had to go home and figure out, what in the world do I do about this? So I decided to find something to stare at, and I just stared at it without moving for meetings, so that I wouldn't give away my position, and also, quite frankly, so that, in fairness, I could be open to learning and hearing about all the positions. The next key I tell you is to take advantage of opportunities to further develop in your area of expertise. You always want to be at least as competitive as the top folks in your field. Find out what your current organization or the organization you aspire to values and what they need, and strive to improve while also continuing to make contributions. You need to be able to carefully evaluate your life as you commit to taking on more and different responsibilities, and make sure your circle of support is able to provide you that much needed reinforcement during those times. So I want to just pause for a quick second, lest you come away from this talk with the impression that my career had been all rosy. Not really so much. It was, in fact, not by any stretch that I encountered obstacles of people, obstacles of bureaucracy, obstacles of bias that threatened to impede my progress. You know, stuff like that just happens, and you have to be prepared for it. So when things don't go as planned and a door gets closed, you need to look for a window, or you need to wait for another door to open. Be your own personal biggest critic. When things didn't go well for me, I often looked for reasons, and I tried to start introspectively looking at me. Did I miss the mark? Did I misinterpret the expectations? Did I misjudge the opportunity? And then I went back to those mentors and looked for advice and counsel from them. Ultimately, what is most important was that I was transparent and honest with myself. My experience has been that folks will help you if you are humble, if you are honest, and if you are capable. You need to know when to move on. And Kenny Rogers says it best: you got to know when to hold them, you got to know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. Next, you need to know when to say no and when to say yes. And this isn't something you're going to innately know, and you won't get it right every time. But you need to be thoughtful about it. Be thoughtful about who's asking, and making sure that it's someone that you have a history with that would cause you to trust. So I thought I was going to be a high school science teacher. That's what I went to school to do. And I ended up retiring from arguably the cybersecurity hub of the United States, if not the world, as the senior-most minority at the agency, having served as the first minority and first woman to ever lead the information assurance, now known as Cybersecurity Directorate. My journey has been about opportunity. It's been about taking risks. It's been about continuous learning. It's been about hard work. And finally, I'm going to close with the without compromise. Ultimately, none of these things happen if you have to give up. None of these things happen successfully if you ultimately have to give up something of great value to achieve it. You should not have to compromise your values to achieve your professional aspirations. You shouldn't have to sacrifice your dreams, your values, your goals in order to take full advantage of cybersecurity opportunities today. You need to hold tight to your values, your personal key principles that drive every single facet of your life. And I encourage you to seek to develop and embrace your own personal key principles. They will drive your actions, they will define you, and they will keep you centered as a servant leader. Make sure you focus on the things that really, really matter the most. In closing, we need to move past the conversation of how hard it is to be a female in the tech world. And instead, we need to talk about how rewarding it is to work in such a dynamic and fast-evolving market that touches every single aspect of our lives and has a profound impact on our society. I look forward to seeing every single one of you succeed. I look forward to seeing you bringing others along in this exciting and challenging field. You are sorely needed, and my wish for you is much, much success. Thank you.